Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Sompo Deep Cut. Today, we're traveling from one coast of the United States to the other, from Washington's vast desert valleys carved by ancient floods to New York's deep glacial lakes and windswept islands. Two regions that could not look more different on a map, yet both rely on a single truth: wine can only survive here because of the way water behaves. In Washington, water is deliberately brought in. In New York, water is what keeps vines alive through punishing winters. Let's begin in Washington, because nothing prepares you for the shock of realizing how dry the state actually is. When you picture the Pacific Northwest, you imagine rain, moss, forests, but all of that sits west of the Cascade Mountains. The moment you cross that range, something dramatic happens. The rain stops. The land opens into a vast rain shadow where annual rainfall drops to as little as 150 to 250 millimeters a year. The Columbia Valley becomes an inland desert masquerading as wine country. This desert, however, is bright with sunlight. Long summer days, about an hour more daylight than many Californian regions, gives grapes time to accumulate sugar quickly, while nighttime temperatures plunge, preserving acidity. That rhythmic dance between hot days and cool nights explains why Washington's wines, even the full bodied reds, carry a distinctive freshness. But none of this would matter without irrigation. Almost every vineyard in eastern Washington depends on meltwater from the Cascades. Drip irrigation is common, overhead sprinklers appear in some places, and deep aquifers supplement river systems where needed. Without irrigation, the Columbia Valley won't exist, at least not as a viticultural landscape. And this necessity shapes everything: yields, canopy management, grape selection, and ultimately style. The Columbia Valley AVA, which covers almost a third of the state and encompasses 99% of Washington's plantings, behaves like a world of its own. Basalt bedrock sits beneath layers of wind-blown loess, glacial deposits, and alluvial soils, a geological palimpsest shaped by the legendary Missoula floods. These soils drain fast, are low in nutrients, and force vines to dig deep, creating concentration without heaviness. Within this gigantic AVA, the story becomes more nuanced. Yakima Valley, Washington's oldest appellation, stretches across cooler pockets suited to Chardonnay and Riesling, and warmer pockets that ripen Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Syrah with ease. Sloped vineyards reduce frost risk, while the four sub AVAs, Red Mountain, Rattlesnake Hills, Snipes Mountain, and Candy Mountain, sit on elevated ridges that drain cold air and shape microclimate. Red Mountain, though small, is one of the most powerful terroirs in the state. Its southwest facing slopes, lean and nutrient poor soils, and exposed conditions produce intensely structured Cabernet Sauvignon, full bodied, ripe, sometimes high in alcohol, yet still lifted by the region's enormous diurnal range. The contrast is why Red Mountain has become Washington's prestige engine. Horse Heaven Hills sprawls across south facing slopes above the Columbia River. Its warm, dry conditions delivering plush, ripe Cabernet and Merlot, while the wind, constant, insistent, protects wines from frost and fungal pressure. It's these winds combined with careful irrigation that allow Horse Heaven Hills to contribute roughly a quarter of Washington's total grape production. Waluke Slope sits at the warmest, driest extreme of the Columbia Basin. Everything here ripens: Cabernet, Merlot, Syrah, and because line a gentle south facing slope, the wines are generous, fruit forward, openly expressive. Irrigation becomes the winemaker's paintbrush. Too little, and the fruit struggles. Too much, and the structure softens. Precision is everything. Then there is Walla Walla Valley, perhaps the most poetic of Washington's regions. Shared with Oregon, Walla Walla is shaped by altitude, vineyards rising towards the Blue Mountains, and by the tension between its cooler, wetter eastern edge and warmer, drier western plains. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec thrive here alongside white varieties like Chardonnay, Semillon, and Viognier. Frost is a constant risk, slopes are essential, and long before sustainability became a marketing tool, Walla Walla growers founded Vinier, a viticultural alliance rooted in stewardship, one of the clearest examples of Washington's thoughtful agricultural culture. Washington does grow Riesling. In fact, it was once the state's most planted variety. But today, Cabernet Sauvignon leads, followed by Chardonnay, Riesling, Merlot, and then Syrah. Across all varieties, the signature profile remains consistent. Ripe fruit, medium plus to high acidity, often supported by new oak, sometimes by whole bunch fermentation in Syrah. The wines feel New World in generosity, but never lose the cool edge of a place where nightfall arrives with force. And while Washington produces 1.5 million hectoliters of wine annually, most of it is consumed in state. Chateau Saint Michel alone accounts for well over half of all production, a single company shaping the economic ecosystem for 1,000 smaller wineries. Exports exist, but they're small. Cellar door and direct to consumer sales remain the beating heart of the business. But now we cross the country and everything changes. Where Washington is defined by aridity, New York is defined by cold. This is one of the most climatically challenging wine regions in the world. Winters here can kill wines. Spring frosts are brutal. Summers are warm but short. And yet, quality wine exists because of something as simple and as powerful as water. The early history of New York viticulture moves from failure to breakthrough. Early settlers tried vinifera near the coast and failed. Only native varieties survived the cold. Then, in 1957, Dr. Constantin Frank changed the trajectory of the entire state. Working at the Geneva Experiment Station, he grafted Riesling and Chardonnay onto hardy rootstocks, and they lived through winter. That symbolic victory became a practical revolution. He planted his own vineyards, proved vinifera could work here, and set the foundation for New York's modern wine culture. The most important region, geographically and in exams, is the Finger Lakes AVA. It is a harsh place, a continental climate, cold winters, warm summers, violent swings between seasons. Yet, this region is saved by the lakes themselves. Long, narrow, incredibly deep bodies of water that behave like thermal engines. Seneca Lake, the deepest, reaches almost 200 meters. These lakes rarely freeze. They radiate stored heat into the surrounding slopes, creating pockets where vines survive. This is not gentle moderation. This is survival. Cold air drains down the steep slopes towards the lakes, where it warms and rises again, pulling more cold air off the land. In winter, lake effect snow acts as insulation. In spring, cool lake breezes delay budburst, a blessing in a frost prone region. In autumn, those same warming waters extend ripening by just enough days to get Riesling and Cabernet Franc across the line. Riesling is the Finger Lakes soul. High acidity, citrus and peach, medium minus to medium body, and a range of sweetness from dry to late harvest. The best examples are outstanding, linear, bright, mineral, and age worthy. Chardonnay, Cabernet Franc, Pinot Noir and Gewürztraminer also appear, while hybrids continue to fill important acreage. Training systems like Scott Henry help combat high vigor and fungal disease in fertile soils and humid summers. Many vines are hilled up in winter to protect graft unions. If the Finger Lakes are defined by cold and depth, Long Island is defined by water and wind. This is a maritime world. The Atlantic to the south, Long Island Sound to the north, Peconic Bay between the two forks. Summers are warm but moderated. Winters are far milder than upstate. Diurnal ranges narrow, humidity rises. And in that moist, windy corridor, Bordeaux varieties ripen steadily. Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc. The North Fork is warmer and more sheltered, the Hamptons cooler and more exposed. Sandy and silt loam soils drain freely, reducing vigor, but humidity demands rigorous disease control and sorting. Rosé has become a signature style led by high profile producers who capitalized on Long Island's lifestyle cachet. Between these two extremes lies the quieter Hudson River region, small in vineyard area but historically important. Vineyards sit close to the river, using its moderating influence to survive cold winters. Hybrids and hardy vinifera varieties coexist, reflecting a region where frost remains a constant threat. New York's modern wine business was shaped not by terroir but by a law, the 1976 Farm Winery Act. For the first time, growers could vinify and sell their own wines directly to consumers. It ignited a wave of small wineries, professionalized winemaking, diversified plantings, and built a vibrant cellar door economy that still underpins the region today. And yet, New York's wines still fight for visibility. Even in Manhattan, one of the most competitive wine markets in the world. But quality has risen steadily, driven by a new generation of trained winemakers, many returning from Europe or the West Coast with fresh perspectives. What I hold as I study Washington and New York is the idea that these regions succeed not because the climate is easy, but because growers learned how to work with, not against, the forces around them. Washington learned to bring water where there was none. New York learned to use water to survive cold. Both regions built modern wine industries on top of adversity, not abundance. That tension, scarcity on one coast, severity on the other, is what makes their wines compelling and what makes these chapters memorable. When you understand how water governs everything in these two states, the exam questions start writing themselves. You'll find the full written companion article linked to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you in the next deep cut.